Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. The moment I walked into that seminar, I should have turned around and left. But there he was, Alex, my first love from college, looking just as charming as he did years ago. My wedding band felt heavier, a stark reminder of the life I had built with David, my husband, who was at home probably fixing someone's computer issues or gaming with his online buddies. Hey, Maria, Alex greeted, his smile as disarming as ever. I felt that old familiar spark ignite, a feeling I thought I had buried deep beneath years of marital routine and shared Netflix accounts. We talked, laughed, and it was as if no time had passed. But time had passed, and I was no longer just Maria, but David's wife. One evening, after the seminar had wrapped up and the after party was in full swing, Alex and I found ourselves alone, tucked away in a dimly lit corner of the hotel bar. The air between us was charged with an electricity that felt both thrilling and dangerous. One drink, I told myself, ignoring the warning bells in my head. One drink turned into several, and before I knew it, Alex's lips were on mine. The guilt hit me like a wave the moment we parted, a stark reminder of the betrayal I had just committed. This was a mistake, I whispered, a promise to myself that it was a one-time slip. But promises, much like glass once shattered, are hard to piece back together. The one-time slip spiraled into several months of secret rendezvous. I was leading a double life, juggling my role as a loving wife to David with the exhilaration and guilt of my affair with Alex. It was a balancing act that left me exhausted and torn. Then came the close call. David, ever so trusting, stumbled upon a message from Alex on my phone. "Who's Alex?" he asked, a simple question loaded with suspicion. "Just a new client who needs legal advice," I lied smoothly, hating how easily the deception rolled off my tongue. David believed me, his trust in me as unwavering as ever, and I felt a pang of shame for abusing it. Realization dawned on me like a cold shower. The risk of losing everything I cherished was too high a price to pay for fleeting moments of passion. I ended things with Alex, deleting his number and blocking him on all social media platforms. "It's over," I told myself, trying to forget the memories, the laughter, and the intimacy we shared. Our vacation in Italy was supposed to be a fresh start, an attempt to rekindle the romance between David and me. Yet, amidst the picturesque landscapes and romantic ambience, I found myself succumbing to temptation once again. Luca, a charming stranger with a captivating smile, became the focus of a night filled with thrill and self-loathing. I returned to David's side, the guilt of my actions a heavy weight on my conscience. Back home, I vowed to be the perfect wife, overcompensating for my indiscretions with affection and attention. I cooked David's favorite meals, listened to his work stories with genuine interest, and planned date nights, all in an effort to bury my guilt under layers of feigned normalcy. But guilt, much like a shadow, is a constant companion, and no amount of light can fully dispel its presence. The minute David suggested we try new hobbies together, I knew it was his way of bridging the gap that had grown between us. So, when I signed up for those fitness classes, it was with the intention of mending, not tearing further. But that was before I met Leo, the instructor whose charisma was as potent as any physical attraction I'd ever felt. "Push a little harder. You've got this," Leo encouraged, his hand lightly touching my back, sending an unexpected jolt through me. It was a touch meant to motivate, but it awakened something else within me. Leo's attention, his lingering glances, they made me feel desired in a way I hadn't in years. We fell into a passionate affair with the kind of recklessness that accompanies the forbidden. Sneaking around during lunch breaks and after work became our norm, each stolen moment feeling more thrilling than the last. "You're playing with fire," Jenna, my closest friend, warned after catching me daydreaming for the umpteenth time. Her concern was evident, but I brushed it off with a laugh that didn't quite reach my eyes. "It's just a bit of fun," I lied, both to her and myself. David's suspicion grew with every late return from the gym and every evasive answer I gave. "Working late again?" he'd ask, his voice tinged with doubt. I could tell he didn't believe me, but I wasn't ready to face the truth myself. The day he found the hotel receipt in my purse, I saw the trust we'd built crumble in his eyes. It was for an office retreat, I stammered, a lie so flimsy it might as well have been transparent. David's gaze was piercing, searching for the wife he thought he knew. His next move was silent but devastating. A GPS tracker in my car, an invisible chaperone documenting my deceit. I continued to meet Leo, blissfully unaware of the net closing around us. It wasn't love, but the escape from reality he offered was intoxicating. The inevitable came when a colleague, a mutual friend of David and me, saw me with Leo. Bound by a sense of loyalty to David, he told him everything. The confrontation that followed was unlike anything I'd imagined. David, armed with undeniable evidence, his face a mask of betrayal and hurt, shattered the last vestiges of our marriage. The chapter of my life that I'd so carelessly rewritten was coming to a close, not with the promise of a new beginning, but with the stark realization of what I'd lost. David's trust, once my sanctuary, now lay in ruins, a casualty of choices I couldn't take back. The moment David walked through the door, evidence in hand, my heart sank into an abyss from which I knew there'd be no return. "I want a divorce," he said, his voice a cold blade slicing through the last thread of hope I clung to. His eyes, once filled with love, now bore into me with a heartbreak and rage that silenced any plea for forgiveness I might have mustered. I tried, though. God, how I tried. "David, please, let me explain," I begged, reaching for him, only to be met with a step back, his gesture a clear boundary I could no longer cross. My apologies, my tears, they meant nothing. The man I loved, the man I had vowed to spend my life with, was gone, replaced by a stranger wearing David's face, his heart hardened by my betrayal. The divorce was swift, a blur of legal formalities that stripped me of not just my marriage, but everything we had built together. David, fueled by a vindictiveness I had never seen in him, made sure I left with nothing but the clothes on my back and a few personal belongings. I was cast out, not just from our home, but from the life I knew. As if the personal devastation wasn't enough, the news of our divorce and my affairs spread like wildfire, a sensational story for our small community and beyond. Friends who I thought would stand by me turned their backs, their silence a loud testament to their judgment. Colleagues, with whom I had shared countless lunches and coffee breaks, now whispered as I passed, their looks of pity and disdain a constant reminder of the ruin I had brought upon myself. Leo, the man for whom I had risked everything, turned out to be nothing more than a fleeting adventure. This was never meant to be anything serious. "Maria," he said, his words the final nail in the coffin of my hopes for solace. He walked away, leaving me to pick up the pieces of a life I had shattered with my own hands. Now, living in a small, dingy apartment, I found myself in isolation, a pariah in a world I once belonged to. My social circle, once vibrant and full, had evaporated, leaving me to face the long days and even longer nights alone. My reputation, once that of a respected paralegal and loving wife, was now tarnished beyond recognition. In a desperate attempt to find some semblance of the connection I have so carelessly thrown away, I reached out to Alex and Luca, hoping for understanding, maybe even forgiveness. But all I was met with was rejection and indifference. "I'm sorry, Maria, but I can't," Alex said, his voice void of the warmth it once held. Luca, ever the stranger, simply didn't respond. Each day became a battle, a struggle to find meaning in the chaos I had created. The guilt, the loneliness, the sheer weight of my actions bore down on me, a constant companion in my newfound solitude. I had lost everything in pursuit of something I couldn't even name, and now I was left to face the consequences alone. The guilt was a constant, gnawing presence, eating away at me from the inside out. It followed me everywhere, a shadow I couldn't shake off. So, I made a decision, one of the few I hadn't regretted recently. I started going to therapy. Sitting on that cliché couch, I spilled out the mess of my life, hoping, somehow, to cleanse my soul and find a path to self-forgiveness. Work, once a refuge, became another battleground. My performance plummeted, my focus, shattered by the turmoil of my personal life, couldn't hold. My boss, who had always been supportive, pulled me aside one afternoon. "Maria, I've noticed you've been off your game. Is everything all right?" he asked, concern etched on his face. I nodded, a lie ready on my lips, but the truth spilled out instead. "I'm struggling," I admitted, the weight of those words feeling both liberating and terrifying. He warned me of potential dismissal, a reality check that I couldn't afford to ignore. Loneliness became my only constant companion, a bitter reminder of the consequences of my actions. In a desperate attempt for some semblance of connection, I adopted a cat. Whiskers, with her soft purrs and indifferent affection, offered a small solace in my sea of solitude. It was a comfort, albeit small, in the silent presence of another living being. The journey of self-reflection is a long and often painful one. As I delved deeper into my psyche, with my therapist's guidance, I confronted the harsh truth. The pain I caused wasn't just inflicted on David, it was a wound I had also inflicted on myself. Acknowledging that was a crucial step in my path toward healing. Eager to find redemption, I started volunteering at local charities. Helping others became a balm for my guilt-ridden soul. Each act of kindness, every grateful smile, felt like a step away from the person I used to be and a step closer to someone better. But the road was lonely. The fallout from my affair had left its mark, making it difficult to form new relationships. People were polite, but the warmth I longed for was missing. My past was a barrier I couldn't seem to cross. Then came the letter from David. My heart leapt at the sight of his handwriting, a mixture of hope and dread filling me. But the words within were not of forgiveness or reconciliation. It was a final goodbye, a closure he needed, and perhaps, deep down, so did I. The letter was a poignant reminder of all that was lost, a love that once was, but would never be again. The chapter of our lives together was closed, permanently, by the very hand that once vowed to hold mine through thick and thin. The finality of it was a sobering reminder of the consequences of my choices. Yet, it also marked the beginning of a new chapter, one where I could hopefully rebuild from the ruins of my past, a journey of redemption and self-discovery. The night before my move, I couldn't sleep. My past, a tangled web of lies and betrayal, played on a loop in my mind. The weight of what I had done, the innocence I had corrupted, and the love I had shattered felt suffocating. "I need to leave," I whispered into the darkness, a vow to myself to seek redemption, to start anew away from the ghosts that haunted me. Dawn broke, bringing with it a sense of urgency. I packed the last of my belongings into my car, the compact space a stark reminder of how much I had lost. The drive to the new city was a blur, each mile a step further from my old life, each turn a twist away from the person I used to be. The new city, with its bustling streets and unfamiliar faces, was both a promise and a challenge. I hit the ground running, determined to rebuild my life from the ground up. But finding employment proved to be a hurdle I hadn't fully anticipated. My scandal, like a shadow, followed me, whispered doubts filling the ears of potential employers. "We'll be in touch," they'd say, a polite dismissal that left me feeling despondent. Eventually, a small law firm took a chance on me. The relief I felt was palpable, a tangible sign that perhaps I could turn things around. "We believe in second chances," the senior partner said, a statement that felt like a lifeline. I poured myself into my work, grateful for the opportunity to prove that I was more than my mistakes. Starting over wasn't just about finding a new job or moving to a new city, it was about redefining who I was. I vowed to live a life of honesty and integrity, lessons learned from the pain I had caused. It was a promise not just to myself, but to those I had hurt, a silent plea for forgiveness I knew I might never receive. Reaching out to mutual friends of David and me was like walking a tightrope. The responses varied, some forgiving, offering tentative olive branches, while others were not ready to forget the past. Each interaction was a reminder of the bridges I had burned and the long road to reconciliation that lay ahead, should it ever come. In the midst of my attempts to rebuild, I found solace in writing. I started a blog, sharing my story anonymously. It was a cathartic release, a way to confront my demons and, hopefully, help others avoid the pitfalls that had ensnared me. If my story can prevent even one person from making the mistakes I did, then sharing it will have been worth it, I reasoned. Each word typed a step towards healing. This chapter of my life, unlike any before it, was marked by a stark honesty and a relentless pursuit of redemption. It was a journey fraught with challenges, but also filled with small victories, each one a testament to the strength it takes to start over. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, I could forge a path forward, one step at a time. The night I hit publish, on my latest blog post, my heart raced with a mix of fear and liberation. Sharing my story, raw and unfiltered, felt like shedding a skin, leaving my vulnerabilities exposed to the world. To my surprise, the response was overwhelming. Comments poured in, not with judgment, but with empathy and understanding. I had found a community, a virtual embrace from strangers who appreciated my honesty and vulnerability. It was a small beacon of light in the otherwise dark expanse of my journey. Yet, when the screen dimmed and the world outside my window fell silent, the loneliness crept back in. Nights were the hardest. Guilt and regret were my constant companions, whispering reminders of what I had lost. I tossed and turned, replaying my mistakes, wondering how different things might have been if I had chosen differently. Therapy sessions became my lifeline, a space where I could unravel the knots of my past actions. Understanding the roots of your actions is the first step towards healing, my therapist would say, her voice a calm in the storm of my emotions. It was in these sessions that I learned the importance of self-improvement and forgiveness, not just of others, but of myself. To quiet my mind and escape the whispers of the night, I took up running. The rhythmic pounding of my feet against the pavement, the steady breaths filling my lungs, became a meditation. With each run, the weight on my shoulders felt lighter, the path ahead clearer. It was on one of these runs that I met Ella. Our conversations began with hesitant smiles and brief exchanges about the weather. But as the miles and days passed, a friendship blossomed. Ella, with her easy laugh and open heart, became a bridge to a world I thought I had lost forever. She was my first step towards social recovery, a reminder that not all was lost. The day I stumbled upon David's engagement announcement on social media, my heart stopped. There, smiling back at me from the screen, was the life I had once been a part of. The pain was sharp, a bitter reminder of the consequences of my actions. Yet, amidst the hurt, there was also a flicker of hope for David, for his future happiness, and for my own journey forward. Emboldened by the support of my online community and the budding friendship with Ella, I threw myself into local community projects. Planting trees, organizing charity events, and participating in neighborhood cleanups, I found purpose. The respect I earned was modest but meaningful. Each small nod of recognition a step away from my past. Not everyone was welcoming, however. Whispers and sideways glances followed me in some circles, a backlash from those who couldn't see beyond the mistakes I had made. Their judgment stung, but it also steeled my resolve. Change is hard, and forgiveness even harder. I reminded myself, determined to prove through actions, not just words, that people could change. This chapter of my life was a mosaic of highs and lows, of setbacks and small victories. Each day brought its own challenges, but also opportunities for growth and redemption. My journey was far from over, but with each step forward, I was slowly but surely reshaping my story into one of resilience, hope, and a deepened understanding of the human capacity for change. The day I stood before my community, accepting the service award, my emotions were a tangled mess. Pride, for the recognition of my efforts to make amends. Sorrow, for the path that had led me here, and a poignant reminder of the bittersweet journey of redemption I was on. This award isn't just for me, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. It's for everyone who believes in second chances. My blog, once a personal diary of my darkest moments, had blossomed into a sanctuary for those wrestling with their own demons of guilt and betrayal. I poured my heart into every post, every piece of advice, hoping to light the way for others as lost as I had been. "You're not alone" became my mantra, a bridge of words spanning the gap between despair and hope. Despite the strides I had made, the quiet moments were a stark reminder that some wounds were too deep to ever fully heal. I learned to live with my regrets, accepting them as part of who I was, a mosaic of my mistakes and my efforts to right them. The realization was sobering, yet it brought a certain peace, an acceptance of my flawed humanity. Ella, my unexpected anchor, stood by me through it all. Our friendship, forged in the fires of my lowest points, had grown into an unbreakable bond. She was a constant reminder that forgiveness was possible, that the heart could open again even after being closed off by betrayal. "I'm proud of you," she'd say, her support unwavering, a beacon in my moments of doubt. The anniversary of my divorce was a day of introspection. I reflected on the tumultuous journey, the pain I had caused, and the strides I had made towards becoming a better person. The scars remained, etched into the fabric of my being, but they no longer defined me. I had grown, transformed by the lessons of my past, ready to face the future with a newfound resilience. Forgiving myself was the hardest battle I fought. It came slowly, a gradual release of the burden I had carried. Understanding that I couldn't change the past, but could shape my future, was a revelation. I vowed to live each day with purpose, to make amends through actions rather than words, to be the change I wished to see. Standing at the crossroads of my life, I looked back at the path I had traversed, marked by the footprints of my journey. Ahead lay uncharted territory, a future I was now ready to embrace, not as the woman I once was, but as the person I had become. I was forever marked by the choices of my past, living with the knowledge of their irrevocable consequences. Yet, I stepped forward, a testament to the power of redemption and the unyielding strength of the human spirit to overcome. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more real-life stories and relationship advice. Hello, lovely viewers, and welcome back to our storytelling session. Today's tale is one of shock, betrayal, and sweet, sweet revenge. Picture this: you come home early to surprise your beloved spouse, only to find them entangled with someone else in your own bed. It's the stuff of nightmares, isn't it? But what happens next is a plot twist you won't see coming. Join me as we delve into the story titled, "I Came Home Early to Surprise My Wife and Found Her in Bed with Another Man. Here's How I Got My Revenge." What he then came home to was terrifying. He saw his wife in bed with her affair partner, but rather than confronting them, he recorded them for proof, then walked out and ghosted her. Now, she's history. Let's get into today's story to find out what happened. So, I went on a work trip for a week and told my partner of 3 years, ex, that I was coming home on Sunday, but I had actually booked a fly-in yesterday and take her on a surprise date for her birthday, which I otherwise would have missed. I messaged ex happy birthday yesterday morning and asked what she was doing for the day, to which she replied she would be having a wine and movies night with her friend, who lives in our apartment block. I reiterated that I could not wait to be home on Sunday. She said she couldn't wait and that she loved me. It has been really hard to write and relive this, but when I got home, I parked out by the front of the building on the street, and when I walked through the code gate, I couldn't see lights on up by our balcony. I did see Y's lights on, so I assumed X would be at her place. I didn't even have to enter, as her place was on ground level, and I saw through her window she was on her couch watching TV alone. I figured maybe X was out, so I walked up our 3 flights of stairs, and as I approached the door, I could hear it, and my heart just sank. The sound of R&B music, moaning and knocking. The door wasn't even locked, and with the way it's positioned, opening the door gave a direct view of our bedroom. I just slightly opened the door and saw my girlfriend straddled on top of who I instantly recognized to be a guy from the gym we go to. I think what stood out to me more was that it looked like it was unprotected sex, as I could see everything. I quietly closed the door and my soul just felt like it floated out of me. I knew they never heard me or noticed the door. I sat on the step for a good 5 minutes to process. This has always been my worst nightmare, but to literally have it play out exactly how I dreaded, another man in our bed just gripped at the heart. I couldn't cry as it felt so surreal. Was this really happening? Was I dreaming? The continued sounds quickly brought me back to earth. I got up and walked out of the building and towards the front gate. Wyatt spotted me through the window and called out to me and waved, gesturing for me to come over. I do get along very well with her, and in the past she had told X how highly she thought of me as a friend too. She had also openly told X that she found me attractive and asked if I had single friends who were also my nationality, from New Zealand. There had always been chemistry between us the first time I met Y, but that always stayed buried in my mind. I put on a brave face and walked into her apartment. We hugged, and she asked what I was doing home early. I told her I had dates mixed up and wasn't she supposed to be having birthday drinks with X? She seemed confused and told me that X said she was going out for drinks with some of our gym friends. Go figure. I instantly burst out in tears and cried for what felt like forever, and she got quite worried asking what was wrong, did something happen to me, etc. I struggled for words, but blurted out that I had just walked in on the two of them in our bed. Her face turned so white, and she just hugged me and started to cry too. She knew I was a joker, but I think she knew this was no joke. I just started talking out of frustration, saying that I didn't know what to do, that they could be up there all night, and that this was my nightmare. We had no issues in our relationship other than her lack of interest in sex once every 6 weeks. It's a wonder I lasted 3 years with her, and I had accepted that a long time ago. Y laughed through her tears and told me she had always been single and not had sex the entire time she knew me, and joked that maybe we could both use it. That actually made me laugh a bit too, and I hugged her, thanked her, and for a second forgot X was upstairs cheating on me. I asked her if I could stay there for the night as I had nowhere to go, and I slept on the couch. I am still here a day later. I watched the guy leave in the morning and watched in tears when he came back this evening. I'm supposed to be home tomorrow afternoon. I haven't texted X all day, but she hasn't texted me either. Truth be told, the only comfort I have now is with Y. How do I deal with X? Do I walk up there and interrupt? Do I call? Firstly, I want to thank everyone for their views, opinions, and advice. I'm still trying to keep up with reading the comments. I appreciate those saying I should have had a backbone or a spine. To be honest, I'd be saying the same things to someone else. This is my first experience with infidelity, so it was easier to judge until it actually happened to me. Anywho, before I tell you what has happened today, I will answer a few questions. Me. I have my own business and run it end to end by myself. I travel maybe 3 times a year to meet with production facilities and do quality checks for my product. Physically, I am 6 feet 6 inches, 124 kilograms, and I play rugby and have done a lot of boxing, so I can definitely defend myself. However, I do not go around using that. I absolutely tower over that piece of crap guy in every way. I earn a very comfortable living, as does X, so a split will not financially cripple either of us. And we're not married. The tears have been shed. I realize this was a blessing in disguise, and I know what I need to do. Apartment. We split all the bills 50-50 and have 4 months, and a week left on a year-long lease which has both our names on it. We had been actively looking for a home to buy. I guess I dodged a bullet there. Why? What a woman. Aside from her personality, she is absolutely gorgeous. How she is and always has been single, I will never know, and she has not been intimate with anyone in over 3 years, according to X. She has been on my side through it all without saying a cruel word about X. She understands it was a bad thing to do towards me and that it does not involve her. That being said, she has said once X inevitably owns up to it, she will likely stop being friends with her. She has not tried to come onto me like a rebound and has just been super supportive. That alone speaks volumes to her character. X works in a hospital and is very attractive. Nice woman, but can be quite self-centered. In hindsight, we were basically just friends. We have only ever had protected sex because she does not want to get pregnant or go on the pill, and it was once in a blue moon. I guess I just accepted it and got too comfortable in the relationship being what it was. I'm just trying to get my head around how she never even showed signs that she was cheating. I know I'm not perfect, but I have always been good to her, always cooked for her, and did a lot around the house. We went on dates regularly. I told her things about her to make her feel loved, and I always got brushed off after what I thought was a good night. I now question why. If she didn't want me, why did she stay for so long? My plan. I intended to call her this morning to say my flight would be leaving earlier and that could she pick me up at the airport earlier. With the airport being a 40-minute drive away, I would use this time to go up and pack all of my things and rush them to my car. Y said I could put some of it in her spare room. Once X noticed my things missing, she would try to call me, message me, etc., and I would simply respond with a photo of the two of them in bed. After reading comments, I decided the cruelest punishment for her would be to have no closure. I would explain to the property manager my circumstances and go and stay with a friend until I could find a new place. X could cover the rent. She could certainly afford it. I do have the option to stay with Y, but that is way too close to X, and I do not want to do anything with Y that could ruin our friendship, even though I know her and I are inevitable. The outcome. I went up very early in the morning and very quietly opened the door. Fortunately, they were asleep on the bed, so I took a photo of them, but it was weird. I almost felt guilty about violating privacy when my entire relationship was violated. I did not feel sad anymore, just angry and betrayed. I noticed his shoes on the floor next to my various, much larger pairs. I decided to take a photo of those and use it first. I figured it would be a more subtle way that she would likely lie about until I hit her with the photo of them in bed. I went back down to Y's and waited around for another hour or so until I was certain X would be awake. I tried to call but got no answer, and twice again to no answer. I looked at Y and we both just knew what was happening. After about a half hour, she called me and sounded very much awake and like everything was very much normal. I tried to put on my normal voice and told her my flight was leaving 2 hours earlier than I thought. I asked if she could collect me at 1 p.m. She said yes and that she loved me, that she was at her parents' for breakfast, and that they said hello. Lie. On that note, her parents love me and will be broken about this. I went and laid down for a few hours to run through what I would get from the apartment. Other than clothes and a few appliances, most of my stuff was already boxed as I knew that if we bought a house, I wanted an easy move. Around midday, I saw X go down to the car park and I gave it a few minutes after she left before I moved my car and went upstairs. It smelled like air freshener and I noticed new sheets and covers on the bed. All the dishes were done. She went to every length to cover up that anyone else had ever been there. It took me all but 10 minutes to gather all of my things. If I forgot anything, I probably didn't care about it. It did feel weird knowing it would be a goodbye to the place I called home, but I felt strong. X sent me a message asking where I was as she was at the arrivals area. I replied and said I was held up and that I would Uber home. Maybe an hour later, a bunch of missed calls and messages came in asking where all of my stuff was and if something had happened. My heart nearly beat out of my chest when I sent the photo of the shoes saying these aren't my size. She had the audacity to reply saying that they were her brother's from when he picked her up to go to mom and dad's. Did I not say she would pull something like that? I didn't even want to discuss it, but I knew she was cornered, so I sent the photo of them in bed and I left it at that. She did not even try to call. I was expecting a wave of calls or texts. In my eyes, that was me leaving her, and I know I could have called her out or caught them in the act and confronted them, but I wanted her to know I knew and that she would never be able to know how or explain herself. I will not tarnish her name as it is not in my nature, and I do not want to ruin her life, but she can live with this forever, although I doubt she has a conscience. I have left Wise as I know X will be down to see her soon, and I met my friends nearby collecting today's rundown to relay to you all. If it were not for Y, this would have been a lot harder, but I know she will sever her friendship with X in the next day or two. I am doing well and looking ahead. This hurt at first, but I'm glad I found out now and not after we bought a home. I have sent an email to the property manager informing her of our sudden split and that she would be covering the rent until the lease ended and that she could keep the bond. I think the pain for X will be when Y and I begin our inevitable relationship. Good for you, OP. Glad to hear that you didn't tolerate any of the crap your ex has put you through and have immediately moved on. You do not need to give her any kind of closure whatsoever. She needs to suffer the consequences for her actions and the pain she has caused you. If I were you, I would not get involved with Y right now. I feel like it is too early for you to do that. Instead, I would call your friends and family, tell them everything that happened, and ask if you can stay with them temporarily for the time being. If you're on a lease with her, then contact your landlord and tell them what happened so that you can get taken off. I wish you the best with your situation, OP. Thanks for taking the time to listen to today's story. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done so yet, and comment below on what your thoughts are on today's story. If there's a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact me. Take care, everyone. If this story touched your heart, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with others who might need to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new story. We'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more
Hey everyone, welcome back. You won't believe what happened in today's story. My fiancé and I met each other through mutual friends 4 years ago. We were at a small get-together, and I saw her from across the room and introduced myself. At the time, she was actually in a relationship with someone else, so she politely declined my invitation for dinner. About a month later, I got a text message from an unknown number, only to see that it was her, and she was single and hoped I was still interested. I was glad that she reached out. I hadn't been pining over her during the time we were apart or anything, but I was very interested in her before I knew she was with someone else. We went out and had a good time together. Things continued from there. I proposed to her on New Year's Eve in front of all of our friends. It was super romantic, and I knew that a lot of people saw our relationship as one to look up to. I thought I found my soulmate. My fiancé had a best friend. We'll call her Kate, and she was always at our apartment. I didn't usually mind because Kate and I got along well. I know that she was one of the most important people in my fiancé's life, so I wasn't going to say or do anything to upset her about it. I know that my fiancé was close with Kate's family as well. She and Kate met each other during college, and because my fiancé's family was out of state, Kate would invite her to Thanksgiving and Christmases and things like that. From what I understand, she was accepted as part of the family pretty quickly. I even met Kate's family on a few occasions because they wanted to meet me to see if they approved of me marrying my fiancé. It was all a little much from time to time, but I loved my fiancé and I got along well with them all. Kate's family was seemingly perfect on the outside, but they had their troubles. One day, my fiancé came to me and told me that Kate's parents were getting divorced. She was upset about it, almost like they were her own parents going through separation. Honestly, I did think that was a little weird, but I knew how close they all were. One day, I got home from work, and I saw that my fiancé had a bag packed and was carrying it out to the car with Kate. I asked what was going on, and she told me that had come over upset, and they were going to her parents' house to console her father. He was apparently very upset and had been handling the separation very poorly. She told me I didn't need to go along, that I should just stay home and relax while she was away. I said goodbye to her, and aside from texting every now and then over the weekend, I didn't hear from her until she came back the following Monday. When I asked her about what happened, she seemed hesitant to tell me. I didn't think much of it at the time. I figured she must have just had a stressful or emotional weekend because of her connection to the family. She told me that Kate's dad was a mess, and it was hard to see him that way. I felt bad for her because I knew she cared about him. I gave her a hug and tried to reassure her that there was a reason for everything, and if they thought divorce was the best option, then they were doing what was good for them. A couple of weeks went by and my fiancé told me that she was going back to Kate's parents' house. I was a little taken aback by her telling me that again. By no means did I think that Kate's dad would have just been over what was happening, but my fiancé going back over a second time seemed a little excessive. She came back the following Monday, and since then, she had been texting with Kate's dad often. It didn't really bother me when I first realized they were talking regularly. He was 20 years older than her and her best friend's father. I thought that she was happy with me and just reaching out to a friend to make sure they were okay. It started to be a problem when I heard her talking to him on the phone one day. I was supposed to be at work, but I forgot my reading glasses at home, so I ran to grab them on my lunch break. I overheard her in our bedroom talking to somebody and obviously flirting. She was giggling and laughing at the other end hysterically. I listened for a minute before I opened the bedroom door to see what was going on. She was on the phone and lying on the bed in a towel. When she saw me, she hung up and asked me why I was there. I asked her who she was talking to, and she told me that it was Kate's dad. I was surprised to hear that because it didn't seem like an appropriate time for her to be calling him. I asked about what was so funny, and she started explaining an inside joke they had to me. Honestly, even if I was in on the joke, I don't think I would have thought it was that funny. After seeing that, I was suspicious that there was something else going on. He had been taking up a significant part of our lives, seemingly out of nowhere, and after evaluating everything, I thought it was a problem. I didn't want to accuse my fiancé outright of having something with him, so I figured I would keep an eye on it. That very same weekend, she told me that she was going to Kate's dad's house again. I asked her if Kate was going, and she told me that Kate was meeting her there. I thought it was strange because normally when they went, Kate would come to her house and they would drive together. I didn't understand why they were doing that again. My suspicions were raised again. I didn't say anything instead. I told her to drive safely and thought about what I wanted to do. My gut was telling me that their relationship was more than just platonic, and I thought that I needed to prove that in some way. My fiancé didn't use much social media. All of her communication was through her text messages, and she brought her phone with her. I had never been to Kate's parents' house, so I had no idea how to find her while she was there. The thought occurred to me that if my fiancé was doing something with Kate's dad, she wouldn't have told Kate she was going there. That might mean that Kate was still at her house. I grabbed my keys and drove right over. I saw her car in the driveway, which was not a good sign. That alone confirmed a lot of my suspicions. I tried to figure out what I was going to say, and then I knocked on the door. She was surprised to see me because I was apparently supposed to be going to my parents' house that weekend. At least, that's what my fiancé told her. It was clear that my fiancé lied to both us so she could go off and do something on her own. I explained to Kate everything that I knew about her going to her dad's house. Kate was visibly pissed when I said that. I asked her why she was so upset, and she told me that she asked my fiancé not to see him anymore. She had been sensing something between them, and didn't want my fiancé to throw away her relationship with me. On top of that, she didn't want her best friend to be messing around with her dad. She told me that we needed to go and see what was going on for ourselves. I followed her to his house and nervously anticipated what we would both find when we got there. Kate stormed out of her car when we arrived and saw my fiancé's car in the driveway. She had a key to get in, so she opened the door for us. We could tell that something was going on there. There were candles lit and glasses of wine sitting on the table. We heard music playing in the bedroom, and Kate asked me to go in because she didn't want to see her father having sex. I didn't want to see it either, but I took one for the team. I opened the door, and I found them right in the middle of sleeping together. Kate's dad thought I was an intruder at first, but then Kate yelled from around the corner for him to put his pants on and go out to the living room. We waited for them there, and both of them came out to find us after they got dressed. My fiancée looked like she had just been told she only had a day to live. She was distraught that I discovered her affair. She begged me to forgive her without even telling me anything about it. She tried to tell me that it was a mistake, but it seemed like something she had been planning for some time if it hadn't been going on already. Right there, I told her that the wedding was off and I asked for the ring back. I told her that we could no longer live together either. I wanted her out of the house as soon as possible. Kate's dad tried to explain and say that she was there for him, and it just happened. Absolutely none of Wysall walking into that house made it seem like it was an accident. Neither of them could take responsibility for what they'd done. Kate was furious with both of them, and told them that she didn't want to talk to them ever again. I figured it would be easier for her to cut off my fiancé, but her father I imagine would be more difficult. Honestly, I doubted she would not speak to him ever again, but their relationship would never be the same, and that would suck for them both. Kate and I eventually left and went back to her house. We unwound and got completely trashed that night. While we were drinking, she told me about all the things my fiancé told her about our relationship. Apparently, my fiancé was very interested in the security that I could give her. She wasn't necessarily interested in me for my looks, personality, or the amount of love I had for her. She told me that I could do better, and hoped that I would get away from my fiancé. I had every intention of doing that. So we broke off the engagement entirely, and my fiancé was forced to move out of my house. I don't know where she went after that. Kate was her best friend in the world, and most of her friends were also close with Kate. I'm sure none of them were happy that she slept with Kate's dad. It was quite the betrayal on her end. I do keep in contact with Kate, and she told me that she does not speak to her father. She is open to reconciling in the future, but there has been a lot of damage done, and she needs time to heal from that. So, he lost his entire family in a short amount of time. OP. I would venture to say that your girlfriend had a crush on Kate's dad for a while before the divorce. She probably used his emotional state as an excuse to get close to him in some way. That's why she was so eager to go along all this time she went to visit him with Kate. It's unclear if the time they were caught was the first time they had been together, but it wouldn't surprise me if they had hooked that first night when you mentioned her being distant. It's nice that you and Kate are still friends after going through something like that. I know she was best friends with your fiancé while you were together, so a lot of the things she knew she probably couldn't tell you. But it was good of her to tell you the truth about your fiancé when she could. It was at least a good gesture to ensure you didn't go back with somebody toxic like that. Deciding to get married is difficult, and it might be easy to think all relationships could end up like this. But I hope you're able to find someone in the future who doesn't lie, and will make sure the relationship is honest. Now let's move on to our next story. My wife and I have been together for about 15 years. We met in the workplace and we quickly found out that we enjoyed each other's company. We decided that we wanted to go on a date to see if our relationship could be more than platonic. While we were together, we had an incredible time and we started dating. Fast forward 15 years, we had 2 wonderful children, a house in the suburbs, a vacation house at the shore, and a perfect little life. I thought she was the perfect partner. She was always there for me when I was stressed out, and she was an incredible homemaker for our children. We decided that being a stay-at-home mom was going to be the best for our needs, so I took care of the family financially, and she did in every other way. The beginning of the end for us came when my wife had a bad fall. She managed to tear one of the ligaments in her knee, and had to keep it in a brace for quite some time before going to physical therapy. Things were a bit different at the house with her limited mobility, but I stepped up and did everything I could to keep things as normal as possible. She seemed to appreciate everything that I did to take care of her when she was having difficulty doing it herself. After all, we made vows that said in sickness and in health, and I took that seriously. The time came for her to start going to physical therapy, and she had to go through it alone. This was at a point during a pandemic when only patients could go into medical practices. However, my wife did have a couple of Zoom consultations with her physical therapist, so I got to meet him during those. He seemed like a nice young guy. He was newly graduated, and he seemed eager to grow his client roster. He had a lot of technical knowledge, but I wasn't certain he had hands-on experience. I was apprehensive about him at first, but my wife raved about him after her first in-person session. If she was happy with him, that was good enough for me. She was the one going through the therapy, so that was the only opinion that mattered. She needed to go through several weeks of physical therapy, so she could safely walk around without a brace on. It was a long-time commitment for her, and I knew she had been very nervous about the pain, but we were all very excited to get things back to normal. When I thought everything was going to be good, she told me that she had to do a couple more weeks of therapy. She had improved a lot, but the physical therapist didn't think it was in her best interest to take the brace off entirely. I was a little frustrated about it. I didn't understand why it was taking as long as it was, but then again, I wasn't the expert. On top of that, my wife told me that the time slot for her therapy had changed. She had normally been doing it while I was off work, so I could drive her there and back. The time change was in the middle of the day while I was working. She assured me that driving wasn't going to be an issue since she was doing so much better. It was a lot of minor changes that kind of frustrated me, but I didn't think she was sleeping with her physical therapist. Being the supportive husband that I was, one day I took an early lunch to go check on her at the physical therapy office. At that point, I was allowed to sit in the waiting room while she was in the back. I checked in, letting the receptionist know that I was there for my wife. I sat down for a couple of minutes, and the receptionist asked me if I had the right appointment time. I told her that my wife was supposed to be back there already, and she had an appointment with the physical therapist. The receptionist told me that the therapist I mentioned was out of the office for lunch, so I must have had the wrong time. I thought it was really strange. I never imagined that my wife would be cheating on me. I tried to rationalize it in my head to make it make sense in some way. I drove home, not expecting her to be there at all. However, her car was in the driveway. I was relieved to see that. If her car was home, that might have meant that she ended up rescheduling the therapy appointment or canceling altogether. I walked inside, and I found her in the kitchen having sex with the physical therapist. I was in complete shock. Honestly, looking back, it felt like my soul left my body at that moment. I was crushed to see it with my own eyes. They didn't even notice me for a couple of moments before my wife looked over at me and quickly pushed the physical therapist off of her. I didn't know what to say to either of them. All I knew was that I needed to get out of there. I rushed out to my car and sat there for a minute trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Going back to work wasn't an option, not after what I just saw. My wife came running out of the house, and she banged on my car window for me to open it. After a moment, I rolled it down and listened to what she had to say. She swore up and down that it was the first time anything happened between them. She made it seem like it just happened, as if that made it okay. I was putting the pieces together in my head slowly, and that didn't add up with everything else. She had rescheduled her therapy time to his lunch hour. On top of that, I saw her run out of the house without a brace on, so she clearly didn't need therapy anymore. She had mistold me completely and lied to my face. I told her that I needed some time alone to think, and I drove off. I booked a room at a hotel in town, and I took the time alone there to consider my options. I couldn't be with somebody who would cheat on me. Just wasn't an option. The trust in our relationship was completely gone after that. Divorce was a messy option, but it was the only one I could see. I looked online for some good divorce attorneys, and tried to snag up the best one before my wife could. I had a meeting with her, and we started to get the paperwork together so I could officially serve my wife with the papers. Meanwhile, the physical therapist who slept with my wife needed to lose his job. Sleeping with a patient was extremely unethical, and he could potentially lose his license over something like that. I considered that maybe that would be wrong because he was young and new in the industry, but I wanted to get revenge. I reached out to the practice that he worked for, and I told them about what happened. They were appalled when they heard it. They assured me that he would be properly dealt with. When I went back to my house and started packing up some of my belongings, my wife confronted me about that. She said that because she was technically still a patient there, he could lose his license, and that would be ruining his entire life. She was angry with me for telling the truth to his employer. After everything that happened, they were still in contact with each other. I didn't care at all. I gave her the divorce papers and packed some of my things to leave. We did eventually get divorced, and it was a bit of a mess. She tried to fight me on everything, but because we signed a prenuptial agreement where infidelity would void a lot of things, she wound up with nothing. I got to keep the house, both of our cars, and most of our assets. I didn't need to pay her any spousal support or child support. Because I was the provider, I had custody of the children, and she had visitation rights. Her entire life had been ruined because she had the hots for her physical therapist. So was his. I hope it was worth it for them in the end. OP, from what you described, it sounds like you had immense trust in your wife, and she completely shattered that. It's always so sad to hear someone try to make excuses for what is happening, because they trust their partners so much. Your wife took advantage of your good nature. I hope the physical therapist does lose his license. Forming a sexual relationship with a patient is unethical and a breach of trust. Your wife blaming you for potentially costing him his license is frustrating. She was the one who slept with him. It would be entirely their own fault. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. If there is a story you would like to share with me about your situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact me. Hey everyone! Welcome back to the channel. I once looked up to my cousin. I thought he was a great guy and we were close like brothers. I was also dating a girl. I was deeply in love with her and planned to marry her someday. I thought my life was perfect. One day I came home early because a colleague offered to cover my shift. I was pretty tired, so I accepted and went home. Arriving home, I found them in my bed having sex. Both of them were shocked to say the least. I told them I wanted them to be gone by the time I got back and left the house. They were gone by the time I did get back, but she left me a note telling me she was sorry, and to call her when I calmed down. I didn't call her. I texted her saying that I'd gather her things and drop them off at my cousin's in a few days and that she was staying with him now, not me. I followed through with that. It took about a week to transfer everything. Both of them tried to apologize, but I didn't have anything nice to say to them, so I said nothing. I just knocked on the door and handed the bags to whoever answered before leaving. My cousin called me multiple times to try to apologize, but I refused to accept it. 3 years have passed since then. I went no contact with them. I didn't bring it up to the rest of my family or any of their friends. I'm not sure why. I just didn't. I got a call from a number I didn't recognize, so I answered. It was my cousin. He sounded really happy and was acting like he hadn't destroyed my life. He explained he and my ex were getting married and he wanted me to be his best man. I was so angry that he had the utter gall to act like nothing was wrong and lost my temper. I yelled at him and called him names before hanging up. He sent me a text telling me the offer still stood, and if I didn't want to be his best man, then he just simply wouldn't have one. A few days passed by and I had an idea. I texted him back and apologized. I sent a paragraph of bullshit saying I was still angry, but this could be an opportunity for the 3 of us to heal and move past it. He was overjoyed and said he paid for everything and he'd help me pick out a suit if I wanted, which I accepted because I sure as well wasn't going to spend any money on his stupid wedding if I could help it. The wedding day came. I had spent the week prior writing a speech putting all the negative feelings that had bottled up over the years into words on paper. The wedding was pretty good. I'm sure one of them had some nice well-paying job or something because they must have spent a decent bit of money on this wedding for how nice it was. Our entire family was there, as was a decent chunk of my ex's family. Eventually the time for my speech came. I just remember feeling really nervous as it built up to it and my voice kept faltering when I was reading it out, but I didn't and still don't care, at least I got it out. I explained what these two horrible people had done to me. I called them the worst names I could think of and wished them the worst. Then I left. I was expecting some kind of dramatic moment from all the guests, gasps of shock and all that, but there was none of that. Everyone was completely silent. On my way home I got a call from my ex that I had ruined the wedding and both of them were so upset, and she asked me why I do this. She told me after I had left that a lot of the people they had invited just couldn't look at them the same anymore. I told her that they deserved it for what they'd done to me, and everything I'd said in the speech was true. Since then I've gotten several calls and texts from others in my and my ex's family offering support and telling me how sorry they were that I experienced that. I'm not sure if I feel better having done this, but it did bring me great catharsis when people were telling me the wedding was ruined. At least now they felt at the very least a fraction of what they've made me feel. I was struggling a lot and I just gone back to simply functioning like I was before the wedding, after I came down from getting my own back. I don't at all regret what I did and I still feel satisfied that I got payback. I was making plans to take my own life after what my ex did to me. I hadn't told anyone for obvious reasons but my mom, uncle and cousin, the same cousin whose wedding I ruined. He came to me and told me they'd pay for a private counselor since the mental health department of the NHS is under-equipped to say the least. I went to therapy, found a counselor who was very helpful. He taught me a lot. I got diagnosed with PTSD caused by the discovery of the affair. He's been a big help and has encouraged me to give casual dating a try to build confidence in myself and get used to rejection as a normal part of life. I signed up for a few dating sites, although I'm avoiding Tinder like the plague. My counselor specifically suggested I stay as far away from Tinder as I possibly can. I've not been very successful in that avenue, but it's pretty much in line with what I was expecting. I've talked to a few people and even got a date scheduled, but she stood me up and ghosted me, which hurt. I'm doing much better now mentally than I was before. In a way, I feel like what I went through has made me much stronger as a person and has taught me on how to be careful with the woman I choose to be with. When someone puts you at risk for STDs, gives you PTSD, and tosses away all the emotional and financial health you've invested in a dedicated relationship, you don't owe them a thing. You certainly did the right thing by causing a storm at their wedding. The people there deserve to know what happened. I hope you're doing better now and focusing on whatever makes you smile, and please be careful how much you let your cousin and ex back into your life. They have yet to show sufficient genuine remorse, which says a lot about their character. Matter in fact, don't let them back into your life at all. Now that you've got your revenge, I would cut them off completely and just focus on yourself and building your life back together. Thank you for sharing your story. Let's now get into our second story for today. My story actually goes back a few years, but the current situation with the pandemic has sort of brought it back to life in a way. I turned 39 last December. My girlfriend's birthday is 1 week before mine and my daughter's falls in between, so we tend to have a birthday week celebration. We had been together for nearly 7 years at the time, married for almost 5. I thought we were very happy. The speed with which everything changed shocked me. All of this started back when I was 32 and my daughter was 4. My ex-wife was 31. My ex-wife joined a new gym because of a promotion they were having. It was a very expensive high-end place. It was after that the trouble started. The details of the cheating aren't that interesting, so I'm not going to spend much time describing it. For about 6 months my ex-wife became distant, picking fights a lot, going out on girls' nights, etc. After about 6 months of all this, I went away on a business trip, and when I came home my ex-wife had moved out. Maybe 2/3 of all her stuff and most of my daughter's stuff were gone. In the kitchen there were divorce papers. The note? Nothing. She was offering 50-50 custody and didn't want any money or the house. Now it might be important to know that at this time I was already earning 6 figures plus bonuses and commissions. Due to some very wise investments and careful planning, I expect to be a millionaire by my 40th birthday or soon after. But I guess she wasn't willing to wait. She is a stunning and beautiful woman, so it's not too surprising she was able to meet the guy she did. Especially in revealing gym clothes. I didn't know this when I found the divorce papers, but the man she left me for was already a millionaire. He was also 45. But I didn't know about the other man at the time. All I knew was my wife had left with our child and left behind divorce papers. She wasn't answering my call or anything. Her parents and siblings didn't know where she was. Eventually I talked to her, but she didn't tell me about the other guy. She just said that she wasn't happy and she wanted to move on. After a couple of weeks, what convinced me to sign the papers was when I received an invitation to her second wedding. I signed the papers and she remarried 3 months after leaving me. I'm giving kind of an abridged version because the details of all this aren't so unique. Once I was divorced, I got to see my daughter again, and basically she spent half her time with me and half her time with her mother. I focused on being a better and more present father. I redoubled my efforts to work out and established a thorough exercise regimen. I took some courses about investing and trading and made a fortune. I even discovered a new hobby: woodworking. I would find used furniture usually that had been thrown out and I would refinish it. Eventually I started dating again, but it was nothing too serious. I was more concerned with having another woman around my daughter. She never really warmed up to my ex-wife's second husband. My daughter often said that he tolerated her, but that wasn't. She didn't use those exact words, but that's what she described. Eventually I met my current girlfriend. We've been together about 3 years now, living together for 2. My girlfriend is from Thailand and is 10 years younger than me. She studied therapy and worked in a spa. She and my daughter get along great, and my ex-wife is very jealous. My girlfriend and daughter enjoy spending time together in a way I don't think my ex-wife has experienced. For example, my girlfriend and daughter both have long hair and enjoy watching videos online on how to make very elaborate braids and hairstyles. My daughter enjoys this more than the expensive toys my ex-wife is always buying. Time for the plot twist. The lockdown period was not kind to my ex-wife's new husband. He worked as a business consultant and lost about 75% of his clients when the companies wanted to save money. They might hire him again in the future, but now it's tough. He still has plenty of money, but he was essentially living paycheck to paycheck. Furthermore, it turns out he was also heavily in debt. I don't know all the details, but I've heard he has hundreds of thousands of dollars in credit card debt, as well as outstanding loans. He had to sell his house and they moved into a condominium. He had sold off a lot of his assets to cover most of the costs. He is still comfortable, but their lifestyle took a drastic downgrade. The upside for me, my girlfriend, and my daughter is that my daughter has been living with us full-time for nearly a year. I happily volunteered to take her while they were dealing with their financial situation. The 3 of us have already visited my girlfriend's family in Thailand, and after the pandemic situation is over, we are going to go back and have a wedding in Thailand. We are tentatively planning on relocating to Thailand. My daughter visited Thailand with us and we haven't fully talked about it, but she is excited about living in Thailand with us. She has even started taking Thai language lessons online. I don't know how this will work exactly, and it's not like it will happen tomorrow, but I guess I'll just have to wait and see what happens. Anyway, that's my story. I hope it can help as a source of encouragement and motivation for people going through something similar. Remember that things can get better even after a bad situation. There's a very real phenomenon at work here. Affair down. Cheaters tend to be insecure. They're often narcissistic and they need that sweet narcissistic supply to feel validated and happy. The people they choose in an affair are typically manipulative and cloying, giving your cheating ex a sense of inflated ego and cheap love that simply doesn't exist in a long-term relationship after the easygoing initial stages. Your cheating ex builds shallow relationships with people and is too self-involved and self-victimized to put in the work it takes to grow old with you, bolstered by a secure and deep foundational love. I'm happy to hear that you're doing well. Thank you for sharing your story, and I wish you the absolute best going forward. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. Take care.